I'm Team Squid. My name's Nick Papa. I was on a paddleboard. I finished in 17 hours and 57 minutes. And this is
Nord on board, and I finished in 21 hours, 13 minutes.
Yeah. So, so we're paddleboarders, a few words. So I prepared a couple things that I thought maybe I should supposed to say. We'll go through it quickly, and Sean will too. We'll keep everything tight here, but just like the rest of you here, I did it so I could go on a junk food binge. Nobody's being honest with themselves here, but I am being honest with myself. Sitting here at the lock spot, this binge is coming to an end with a nice serving of salmon and chips or two, and a couple of whiskeys on Sean and Heidi over here, so thank you. I think the first oh shit moment I had was after I left Blake at 12:30 in the morning, and I saw, I think it was Edmonds just glowing in the evening, and I was like, oh, I've got to paddle past that. And it was like unassailably ahead of me. Like I could paddle for the next 2 weeks and be like halfway there, and that really bummed me out. Yeah, that really bummed me out. So that kind of led to this like weird mental zone at like 2:30 in the morning, kind of before the ferry at Bainbridge, where it was like that scene in Neverending Story where the horse dies. You know, they're in the swamp and it's like Artax, and that like the really dramatic music, and that was like in my head for 2 hours straight, I swear, until I saw this little light kind of to my 7 o'clock. I looked back and there's this little thing kind of. And they got closer, and I ended up, after about 30 minutes of seeing this other boat behind me, I kind of gave the rudimentary, hey yo, and it was all quiet after a while, and then I heard like a, you! So I knew it was a friend, so I paddled over, and it was a team called Profound Dominator, which is like a triple kayak sort of assembly. There's 3 of them in it, and
yes, they know my ass quite well.
Yes, sure. Yeah. Oh, it was them. Yeah. Well, lucky for you, it was actually 2 women and 1 man. So you only peed in front of 1 dude and 2 people that would empathize with you.
All right. That's good to know.
So Profound Dominator, yeah.
They know me well.
Yeah, they know you well, and I guess they know me well because I drafted them for about 5 miles to Fade Bainbridge. That felt real good because it was kind of 70% of the effort and 100% of the distance. So I got there, filled up water, ate like half of a bag of ramen, saw a couple cruise liners coming in, which was pretty sweet. The sun was just coming up. Then I hopped back on my board, and to my right was one guy that I really hoped I would see, which was the Molokai wannabe, who's a legend, more so than the people that finished first. The first person to do it on a prone, which is just absolute torture. And you can go on his Instagram and see just how fucked up that guy was. But he pulled through. Yeah. I did this race for junk food and to watch that guy finish. But I saw him in Skelty, and I was kind of jazzed up, and that Neverending Story thing kicked back into my head, and it was like, I'm not in the Artax scene anymore. I'm in the scene where they're chasing the bullies on the dragon, and that theme song, that got into my head, and I was whistling it, and I get out there on the way to Kingston, and who do I see but what is it? 4759 or what? Anyway, the Metalheads. Yeah. And I didn't know that was a team boat. It was just this rowboat out there in the fog, and I'm rowing up, and like Edmonds is over there, and we're kind of in like the northern region of Seattle, which is kind of like the southern region of Bend, Oregon, where I'm from, where people do this drug called meth. And there's this rowboat out there with these people in long hair, and this guy like messing with this guitar like this and a big amp, and I'm thinking like, holy shit, it's like, this is going to be weird. This is a bunch of meth heads. And I rode up, and I'm looking at him like, what the fuck? And he's tampering it, and he's playing, like whatever weird 80s song. And he goes like, you want some donuts and coffee? And I was like, oh, this guy's a friend. Like, you're halfway there. And he was yelling at me, and it was really an uplifting thing. So that really propelled me onto the next, and I think most important moment of the race for me, which is catching up with the 18-person triple canoe boat. Colorado.
The high school kids, PCH.
The high school kids, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's to them.
They were
Yeah, they're crazy. So
They're thinking of coming back next year doing 70-48 and then the first leg of R2AK.
They could do it.
I hope they do.
We should all do that. Yes.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Not me.
Yeah. Everybody here. Yeah. So
Get one kayak canoe.
I saw them.
A very
and
large high war canoe.
yeah, very large war canoes, what they were. But I noticed that at first I didn't know who they were. It was just, it looked like a rock from where I was, just a big thing up ahead of me in the fog. And I noticed that I would get a little bit closer to it if I was jamming it over 5 miles an hour, which in like mile 40 is kind of a tough thing to do on a paddleboard. So I started like engaging my abs and just like, okay, if I can hit over 5, I see this distance shrinking. And I got up to them. And then it's like my knees were hurting, so I sat down and I ate a couple gels and drank some water, and they were up. I did the process again, and I finally caught them. And for about like 5 or 4 miles before no point, all the way up until what I call the doldrums, which is that place right before the cut, right? It's just like this empty expanse of fog
Skunk
and
Bay.
shit. Yeah, Skunk Bay, whatever you want to call it. I drafted them from there all the way to the cut, and that saved my ass because I knew of a current that was running along the shore, and I told them like, cut left, don't go right, and I clocked us going 7.8 miles an hour, which was hauling ass, especially for them and me. Just I was just kind of drafting like very small paddles, but wearing all my heavy stuff from the night before, sweating, and I did it for about 12 miles, and I had about 1.5 liters of water left. I knew that I couldn't get to finish with that much water. And there wasn't anywhere else to fill up, so for God's sake, hang on to the draft. And I did that, and it got me, close enough. Also, they were navigating with a cell phone because it was so foggy, and I didn't have that capacity, so I knew I'd probably lose my way if I didn't do this. I'd run out of water, lose my way, and maybe have to drop out. So I was just in it. And I followed them up into the cut, and eventually I passed through it just like everybody else. And I think this brings me to my last interesting memory, and I'll end it here and pass it to Sean. But my friend Alex Vaughn loaned me his radio because mine was faulty the night before. And all I remember right before the cut was just how flat it was, how foggy it was, and how much I had to pee, and how hard it was to aim that off the boat, and specifically off of Alex's radio, which is now soaking in my thing to wash off all the urine that I so graciously painted over his VHF radio. So to Alex Vaughn, I'm sorry, but thank you. Anyway.
Wait, I'm sorry. That was beautiful, especially the last part. What time did you finish, please?
17 hours and 57 minutes.
Well done.
I take some solace on being the first on a 14-footer.
Right.
14 by 25.
And the first after Carl, right?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Very accomplished person.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and the first person to finish and eat like 20 taquitos in the carne asada. I won that award.
Nord on board, and I finished in 21 hours, 13 minutes. Right. And for me, this was a vacation from raising twins. This was a break away from the chaos that was my home life. And just to be out there and paddling all night, I enjoyed it immensely. There wasn't a single moment that I had regrets or doubts this time. I've done it twice now, and I was thoroughly enjoying the entire time. Met some great people. There's a group of people from Port Townsend that I've been paddling with, and Team Skelty. He's in his 70s, and I met up with him and paddled to Hansville with him, and stopped and had a cup of coffee with him. I didn't need a cup of coffee, but I just wanted to sit with him and have a cup of coffee. Keep going. It was a great adventure. And I had a little vacation for 1 day.
You did a hell of a job.
Good job, Sean. Thanks for sharing.